No, I don't think on the local level we have crooked politicians. I don't feel that way. On the national level, I think there's a lot of that stuff going on, but not on the local level.
Vote for the candidate you think is going to help you the most. I want to be that candidate. It starts right here, right now. If we continue the way we're going, and we're not going in the right direction. We are not going in the right direction.
While there might be not a lot of hope in politics on a national level or things, but like on the local level it really does matter, then also just want to really convey that there's so many local elections that are decided by very few votes.
You really have to foster people to want to run for office. You can sit in a room of professional people and ask them to raise their hands. How many people here are interested in running? You may get one person to raise their hand.
I was the mayor in Cassadaga, and they always used to say that there was a divide between the village of Cassadaga and the town of Stockton. Well, I don't really see that anymore. I see that we're a whole. We're a town and a village. And
I'm the only candidate who has ever managed or supervised an employee.
The fact that we haven't put a shovel in the dirt ceremonially, I might add, for Athenex in the north end of the county is absolutely political.
Up until just a couple of months ago, if you went to the county IDA site and you were looking for videos, the city of Dunkirk wasn't even included.
Live and on demand from the Chautauqua Audio Works studios in downtown Jamestown. This is your source for election coverage. WNY News Now.
Hello, I'm Rory Polero, and with me is my colleague Matt Hummel. Polls are closing across New York State as it's election night 2017. We know that there are going to be a lot of changes this year, possibly, and either way, the future of Chautauqua County is in the voters' hands again. Matt, you've covered this election a little bit. What are your impressions about the issues or the mood of the county?
Well, I can say there are still some people, and it's been like this for a long time, there are some people that feel that their vote doesn't matter. And Ryan's actually, speaking of which, I'm glad you brought that up, our Ryan Hedrick is out and about looking to see who voted or who didn't.
We're standing in front of one of the 6 polling sites in the city of Jamestown. They will all be closed soon, and we certainly hope you made your way to the ballot box at some point today. Now, this man we encountered on the corner of 3rd and Cherry Street says that he did not vote. And he says it's not because he doesn't trust city leadership. He says it's actually the foundations that have the city going in the wrong direction.
It's not the administration so much as it is all the foundations here in town. They kind of drive the walk, basically. And some of those foundations aren't, there's a lot of money coming in downtown. That $10 million with the downtown revitalization. I mean, this is it. This is critical mass. This investment needs to make something happen there.
Holroyd has been between here and Pittsburgh for many years. He's now back in Jamestown, investing his time in getting the library funded. We also talked to Eddie Sundquist, who will be running against Tom Reed next year in the 23rd District. Eddie said it is very important that young voters especially understand that their vote matters.
So I would say that every vote does count, and it's actually a huge thing. What we've seen now, the leadership that we have on a national level is really based on the fact that people didn't come out to vote. And it's so important to get out there, make your voice heard. Every vote is counted, and that's what makes a difference. That's what gets people into offices that really help change our communities.
We just got off the phone with Brian Abrams, the county Republican chairman. He says, according to his numbers, and they're very preliminary, but the county experienced a higher than usual turnout rate. That remains to be seen, and again, that is unconfirmed according to preliminary numbers that the Chautauqua County Board of Elections has access to. Reporting from one of the 6 polling sites in the city of Jamestown, the old train station behind me. I'm Ryan Hedrick, WNY News Now. Election coverage comes first, guys. Back to you.
Thank you for that report, Ryan. We're going to be taking a little bit of a break here to hear from our sponsors, but we do want to note that we have a tote board and it's extremely early. The polls have been closed 3 minutes, but we will give you breaking results as they come in. Hopefully we'll know all the winners and losers tonight, and in the end, hopefully the people are the winners either way. Now a few words from our sponsor.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, well, to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Barillo. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Barillo did. George Barillo gets things done.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
Welcome back, everyone. Rory and I are with the president of the Hispanic Community Council of Chautauqua County, Max Martin. Max, how are you doing, sir?
Thank you, sir, for letting me in.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
We wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the minority representation in local government, because the last census showed that for about 14% or a little more of Jamestown's population was non-white. And yet, it seems there's an underrepresentation in city council and county legislature. Is that an accurate read, and is it fair?
It's absolutely correct. Fair is not, but what is fair? One of the situations we have in Jamestown, actually in Chautauqua County, is that we don't have a community per se. We have a population of Latinos. And when you have a population of Latino, we're very spread. We don't talk to each other. Yeah. So we don't have the power that we should have in the political arena.
Can you explain just quickly for our listeners and our viewers the difference between community and population? Because I think that's a concept a lot of people don't even think about.
Well, if you look at the population per se, which means you're spread, there's no communication between each other. A community has some type of connectivity, either through art, through food, through festivals. Now, look at Jamestown, you have Italian festival, the Greek festival. Those are community established already.
Does that break down to the fact that I argue that people are basically at heart tribal, or we wouldn't have a Little Italy or a Swede Hill or places like that? And how do you break that cycle where we're all welcome as one?
The tribal is a good concept. We don't even have a tribe, the Latino community. Tribal, again, like you said, you have leadership. You have people to look focused to it. That's my goal as a Hispanic Community Council, is to start creating the energy, the synergy, the energy, the togetherness, so we can have a power or a voice in a community.
How do you grab the future? How do you grab the younger generation to get attention to this? Because so many of the people of this next generation are apathetic about politics. They don't trust any of them, and yet that's where the power lies.
I think is that they don't know how to communicate. The young generation now, they communicate through this.
Yes.
Face to face, they don't have that reaction with like we're doing right now. Is the only way we can do that is through education, and hopefully through the high school, through the middle school. We want to start at the middle school level, all the way through college. That they know that we are here for them as a community.
Okay.
The second stage of having a community is having the community that you move into it welcome you, because then you have that cohesiveness. You have something to glue to it. And Latino in general don't feel that we are connected with the community.
Well, I think that goes back to something you and I discussed earlier, in the fact that a lot of people don't realize Puerto Ricans are as American as New Yorkers or people from California.
Again, that's the lack of knowledge of what Puerto Ricans stand for because of the language barrier. Remember, is if you come from another country, I don't care what country you come, you have to learn English to become an American citizen. That's part of it. Puerto Ricans are born Americans, so they don't need to. But what we're trying to do at the Hispanic Community Council is to engage them to say, you have to learn some English, because that's the only way to grow.
It's a functional thing.
It's a functional thing.
Okay. Do you think that, I mean, when I look at it, geographically, there should be at least one county legislator and a couple of city council members that are non-white?
Well, if you look at percentage-wise, we should have at least one or two anywhere.
Yes.
The Chautauqua County in general don't have Latinos in government.
Yeah.
Not just Jamestown.
No.
The only area that now we have representation is Dunkirk, which means the mayor is the first Hispanic elected mayor in the state of New York.
Wow.
Not just Jamestown or Dunkirk, in the state of New York. And the reason he was successful because he created a community. The engagement. He talked to the voters. We are part of it. Let's unite. And he was very successful. I think we need that in Jamestown.
How do we overcome the fear of feeling like an outsider? How do you get them to realize that there are people in the community, there are people that won't want to accept them, that's a given, but there are people that do and want to embrace them as, how do you get them past that fear of rejection?
It's hard because they already come in mindset that we're not welcome.
They feel like second-class citizens?
Not really like second-class citizens. We are a very proud community. We don't feel welcome. So what happened is, like we talked to before, we become a tribe or maybe perhaps a bubble. Okay. And we live close to each other. But now, because Jamestown Latinos are spread so far, we don't even have that.
Okay. It's not like there's one church that's unifying them or a Hispanic festival that they can all come and
Exactly.
Okay.
So we at the Hispanic Community Council, that's one of our goals, is to create, we actually created, by creating the Hispanic Community Council, we're creating that bridge that now we can all come together to cross to that.
What do you feel, this is my last question for you, what do you feel is the biggest political issue for the Hispanic community in Chautauqua County?
Well, representation. But if I live in a community from Ward 1 to Ward 6, and you represent that part of the city and I'm Hispanic, you don't represent me. Mm-hmm. Because we don't look at us as voting rights. So that's the biggest piece we're missing.
Does that lead, though, because my initial reaction would be, then I'm only represented by the Italian Sicilians on the council. How could an Irishman or a Swedish person represent me? And that's part of that historical separation, and that's what this generation is fighting now, what the Italians and the Irish already fought 100 years ago.
And look what happened back then. I mean, the Italian was worse treated than Latino today.
Yes, yes.
And who runs the city?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So why? Because they created a community.
I blame it all on Joe DiMaggio, so it's okay.
They created their own community.
Yes.
If you create a community, then you start creating power.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a long fight ahead, but I wish you luck.
It's happening.
Any questions?
I have to sit back because sometimes when I'm with two of my elders who are, I have to admit, they're way smarter than I am. Yeah. I'm just taking this back. Especially because I'm the millennial. I'm the guy on my phone. I just got to sit back and learn.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been an education for me and hopefully for our listeners. Please stay in touch and keep it. Anytime you need anything, let us know.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
And like I said, this is a good way to start that communication and let the Latino know that there's a place that we can come and talk about our issues. And if you open that door, we're going to show up.
You know where it is. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you again.
All right, and now we're going to take a slight break with a couple of messages from our sponsors. Thank you for tuning in.
The Main Landing Restaurant. Excellent service, awesome food, and a beautiful view.
Everything's made fresh here. We love to be outside, and it's nice inside if it's raining, so we have a choice.
Locals and non-locals agree that the Main Landing is quickly becoming a destination.
It's just so casual, and just the food is amazing.
I love the hamburgers.
But I really like the tuna I had.
The Main Landing Restaurant. Excellent service, awesome food, and a beautiful view.
You're watching WNY News Now, your source for breaking news. WNY News Now with Justin Gould.
Coverage comes first comes at 3 in the morning when everyone else is sleeping. Coverage comes first is at 1 in the afternoon when you're just getting done with lunch and the unthinkable's happening. Coverage comes first at every single board meeting across the county. Coverage comes first when you're not afraid to ask the questions that matter. And coverage comes first for our viewers, for our neighbors, and for our friends.
And now, after that interesting interview, we're going to be talking with our own Justin Gould, who's up in Mayville. Justin, how you doing?
Hey, good evening. Much headquarters at Webs and Mayville, around Tiffany. You see of happy Republicans. They're happy at the moment, anyways, as they file into a warming up venue here. It was kind of chilly when we first got in here, actually. But we're going to speak with Dave Wilfong coming up, Brent Sheldon, and a lot of other big names from across the area as well. And tonight they have kind of like our big board guys that we have with all of the results pouring in. They have a bigger board up behind me right now where they will have the live results coming in as well. We're expecting George Borrello here probably within the next hour, hour and a half as well. We'll talk to him and see how that election comes out. But throughout the trail of our time covering elections this year, we asked candidates about a potential North-South County divide and what their take was on that.
What exactly is your magic in decreasing the property taxes in Chautauqua County beyond raising the sales tax $8 million, selling our county home for $16 million, selling our South County office building for $2 million, and there's talk in the air the Republicans want to sell the county landfill next. What exactly is the secret?
Would you stop with the landfill thing? That is such crap. You know, you've said that over and over again. It's not true. I've never said that. I'm not privatizing that if I'm the county executive. And as far as the magic, there's no magic. Because let me tell you something. Mark Thomas didn't have any magic to deplete our fund balance to $727,000. A 1/3 of 1%.
We heard
Where's the magic
Did you raise the property, the income taxes $8 million?
The largest sales tax increase was under Mark Thomas' administration from 7% to 8.25%.
You raised the sales tax $8 million.
Am I having a debate with you too, Norm? Yeah, that'd be fun. I'd love it. Wish it would be great for you, Rob.
And that was actually not the county divide report that we're going to roll for you. We'll get that in a little bit. But that was Norm Green, the county Democratic commissioner for the Board of Elections. He's also the chairperson for the county Dems. That was him tackling George Borrello at a recent League of Women's Voters in Dunkirk. George responded with this. It's SOT 3-2, Storm.
That is the only DEC certified landfill in Chautauqua County. That makes it a monopoly. Monopolies are very tricky things that you have to be careful with. And when you take a monopoly like that and put it into the hands of a private individual or private company, that could make the people of Chautauqua County suffer. And as much as I'm a private sector person myself, I also understand that when government creates a monopoly, because again, government created this monopoly by saying in order to have a landfill in Chautauqua County, it must be DEC certified, which is fine because we're protecting the environment. But when government creates a monopoly, the government has a responsibility to be careful about how that monopoly is handled.
Thank you for that report, Justin.
In the election that candidates told me they were quite fair. Some of them, maybe not so much. We'll, of course, keep you updated here live in Mayville. Back to you, Matt and Rory.
Thank you so much, Justin. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you a lot in the next couple hours. And real quick, as of note, Justin referred to Brent Sheldon earlier and Dave Wilfong. Dave Wilfong is a Republican candidate for the 11th district in Chautauqua County.
He's the incumbent.
He's the incumbent, and he's running against Democrat Frank Bessie. And Brent Sheldon, again, is a Ward 1 representative for the City Council in Jamestown, and he's also the head of the City Republican Committee. So again, I'm sure we'll be hearing from Justin soon. Storm, is Ryan around? Ryan is not around. He must be having a little bit too much fun.
Election nights are a blast.
That's right.
Unless you're losing.
Oh, no.
One of the things that I found intriguing in my research is the last two times George Borrello ran for county legislature, he ran unopposed. And now he's facing Mike Ferguson for county executive. I think this is going to be interesting to see how he deals with a fight mano a mano. And that's one of the issues that I don't think got addressed much this year, was the fact of how many uncontested races there have been. This year, 10 of the 19 county legislative seats are unopposed, and 4 of the city council seats are unopposed. Had the same set of numbers in 2015, and in 2013, 11 of 19 were unopposed. And I think that can be an issue. I think that is why turnout has been a little low in recent elections. Although the Board of Elections did report earlier today that during the day, it was running higher than expected. And traditionally, the Democrats do well with a stronger turnout in the city. And traditionally, the county has been a Republican stronghold, but the city has been a Democratic lock, and the same with Dunkirk. Any thoughts?
Well, Rory, before I get to some thoughts, I just want to update everybody. We have 4 districts that have reported in thus far, and countywide, Republican George Borrello, who you just alluded to, has 587 votes. Mike Ferguson, the Democratic candidate for county executive, is at 432. And again, obviously, you have a vote for one situation. We actually have, Rory, 2 big boards right now, one on my laptop and one on the TV so that we can both communicate effectively. Meanwhile, for the county clerk race, we have Republican Larry Barmore. He has 561 votes as a Republican incumbent. Leanne Lazzaroni, the former mayor of Cassadaga, is at 439. So that'll be interesting to watch as the evening goes on. A quick update in county legislature right now. It looks like we don't have any votes in yet
For the county legislature.
For the county legislature, but we do have maybe the city?
No, the city's not in.
Nothing for Dunkirk. How about Jamestown?
Well, if we look at Jamestown, we still don't seem to be getting any yet, but it is awful early in the night.
Awful early in the night. Indeed, it's 9:20 p.m. here, and we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Ferguson with my wife Diane. I'm running for Chautauqua County Executive to bring leadership and positive experience to Chautauqua County. From the arena to Dietrich Park and the Jammers, we've had success. I'll bring jobs, battle drugs, and bring new revenue streams through development and growth that will lower taxes. This is serious business, and it calls for strong, bold, innovative leadership and vision. Let me bring that to you, to us, the people of Chautauqua County, with your vote November 7th.
With coverage that matters, this is WNY News Now. WNY News Now with Matt Hummel.
It's more than being on scene at first. It's more than getting a report out there first. It's about what angle we take. Where do we go? Our coverage is original. Our coverage is a different angle than anyone else can even imagine in this city. We have something that's unprecedented, and we'll have an angle that nobody else can top.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, "Well done is better than well said." I've tried to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Borrello. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Borrello did. George Borrello gets things done.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
Over the last few years, New York State politics have been riddled with corruption, but one local leader says that's changing. Ryan Hedrick is standing by with Republican State Assemblyman Andy Goodell.
Now, New York State has obviously had its share of corruption, with Sheldon Silver and many others being indicted. Sheldon Silver's sentence was overturned several weeks ago. Is there still a mindset? Is there still some concern that there may be some 3 men in a room type governing going on? Or have we turned the corner from that tumultuous period?
Yes to both questions. So a lot of the budget negotiations are 3 men in a room. And what's happened that's a little bit different in the past is the 3 men in the room, with the exception of the governor, but the 2 legislative leaders report back to their respective caucuses much more than in the past. So if you were to look back on the budget process 5 years ago, Silver and Joe Bruno, for example, they told their caucus what was going to happen. Now it's the opposite. So there's still some of that 3 men in the room, but it's a much more open process. The second thing, though, on economic development is that we have the Regional Economic Development Councils that review all the proposals and all the applications and make recommendations. And that process is dramatically more transparent than in the past.
Andy, I know you're an assemblyman, you deal with state-level politics, but are you concerned that the city of Jamestown has fallen into a deficit? A lot of people are wondering, how can that be?
Well, there is a budget deficit last year. And as you know, the state constitution caps the amount of taxes the city can charge, and they're at the constitutional cap. So the city has very limited financial flexibility. The state is trying to help the city, and we did it with a $10 million downtown revitalization grant to try to spark additional economic development as a spinoff from the National Comedy Center. We also did $1 million poverty initiative to help bring the overall poverty rate down and people up.
But there's no oversight for Jamestown. The government's not being overseen. The city government's not being overseen by anybody. They're overseeing themselves.
The city is also, though, working directly with the state budget office on a financial restructuring board. And so the financial restructuring board is helping them reduce their long-term health care costs, which will have a long-term benefit to the budget. I haven't seen the budget projections for this year, but it's certainly a major challenge.
And corruption, we've heard that. We've heard that a lot in the last couple weeks.
Well, it's interesting. Sheldon Silver was one of the big names, as you may know, and his conviction was overturned, and he's appealing now, and he's supposed to go on retrial again. They're saying April 16th is when it'll commence with jury selection, unless the higher court, which in this case is the United States Supreme Court, would step in. And so the corruption battles may have ended in one level, but they may be with us for a time to come on another.
Right you are, Rory. And Leanne Lazzaroni, the Democratic candidate for county clerk, said she wants to get past what people deem the North County-South County divide. Lazzaroni spoke to our Justin Gould last week.
So tonight we had a lot of discussion going on in the second county clerk debate that you participated in. The big discussion was a point brought up by a woman who was upset after her mother really couldn't get help at a DMV. Earlier I spoke with Larry Barmore to kind of figure out, really why that was so, and he explained the civil service process and how it's harder to find a candidate. For you, if you were to, become the next county clerk, how would you get more Spanish-speaking folks in the DMV?
Well, first of all, Mr. Barmer's claim was that the salary was too low. And I just actually looked it up. It's $24,000 in change. But there's room to grow on that salary. So that's an entry-level position. And, I think that we should just canvass and recruit people to want to take these county jobs, the people that are who are bilingual. And I think that, he's saying that there are people who want those jobs. I can tell you there are people who want those jobs. And for him, I just would always canvass. The county has positions that are Hispanic speaking. They canvass for that. Probation, human services, the county clinic. There's no reason that all the county services can't have someone who's bilingual, who can speak Spanish.
Would you be able to get around the civil service process, though? Because he explained that you can only take the candidates from that draw, so to speak.
Well, so you hire someone provisionally, and his claim is that people can't pass the test. Well, then what are we doing to help those people pass the test? We have lots of resources. We have a community college, we have a state university, we have a Brady Adult Learning Center. We have lots of places where people can go and practice taking the test, get help taking those tests, and there are bilingual people there who can support that. So I would encourage that. I would ask those people to get the help there if they didn't think they were going to be able to pass the test.
So you would use the clerk's office to kind of reach out to students? Or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why aren't we canvassing? We have a pocket full of people who want entry-level positions. Whether they're Hispanic or not, we're talking about being bilingual. And that's something that, I've told my children all along. You should be bilingual because it's going to be advantageous for you when you seek employment. So I would think that that would be a major recruitment for any services in the county to be bilingual. And we should be looking at those people. We should be canvassing. We should be targeting those people who have had, college Spanish, who are bilingual, who can do the job. And we're not talking, that they, he's calling it an entry-level job. They don't want those jobs. Yes, they do. Absolutely they do. So I disagree with that because I think everybody, we have, 20% unemployment rate? And people who are coming out of college or high school could do those jobs? We should be canvassing for those positions.
And kind of switching gears a little bit, I asked all of the candidates tonight what their thoughts were on Chautauqua County as a whole, and specifically the divide that seems to exist. So far, 2 out of the 4 candidates agree that there is a divide. What's your stance on it?
Well, a divide within the county?
Yeah, like North and South Jamestown versus Duncan.
No, there's always been that, North County is North County and South County is South County, and I get that, but I think that's kind of disintegrating. I was the mayor in Cassadaga, and they always used to say that there was a divide between the village of Cassadaga and the town of Stockton. Well, I don't really see that anymore. I see that we're a whole. We're a town and a village. And I think that, the younger generation that I'm not young, but the younger generation, my generation, is saying, I don't really see that divide anymore. I don't agree with that divide. And I think the more we talk about it being a division, the more it exists. So why don't we talk about it being that we're all together, we're all in this community, we're all in this county, so we should all work together and not say that there is a divide. Well, if there's a divide, let's merge it. Let's not make it a divide anymore.
And how would you, I guess as the county clerk, it's not really your job to do that. But
no,
as a resident,
you have to stay in your lane as the county clerk. But as a resident, I just think that, I really don't, I think it exists in our minds. It doesn't really exist it's nothing tangible that you can put your finger on to say that there's this divide. It's a thought of divide. So I just think that we need to stop saying that, because when we stop saying that, there won't be a division. That we're Chautauqua County. And Jamestown has their own, history, and Dunkirk has their own history, but there's no reason that we can't meld it together and be one. And I just think that we need to stop saying that it's a division, and that would really help, perpetuate that we're one.
And we're back, and Lazzaroni. I've met her before, and, she really, not to get too deep into her, her ideology, so to speak, but in terms of how she presented herself, I mean, she's very experienced.
Well, I think, from my notes, I see that she's got her bachelor's degree. She was the Cassadaga mayor, and so the experience has got to be helpful in a campaign.
Yes, sir.
But we also have some newcomers, everything from a housewife to an entrepreneur. But people aren't the only thing on the ballot. There are 3 propositions across the state, and some of them are garnering a lot of attention. Prop 1 is a state constitutional convention. Every 20 years, the state has to hold a vote on whether to have a constitutional convention, which would then bring amendments to the state constitution. Supporters of it say this is a chance to include things like equal rights for women and corruption clauses, other things. Opponents say it could be a way to slip in stricter gun laws, it could be a way to mess with pensions, and it could cost as much as $300 million to do it. And so you have some recent numbers from the county on Prop 1. What are the voters saying at this point?
Well, we did have one. We're refreshing. I think they're trying to update their system.
Okay.
But last I was able to see with the first one regarding the Constitutional Convention, it was 907, I think, for no to 140 something for yes. So like you and I were talking during break, chances are, I don't want to predict too much, but I bet upstate it's going to be a no. Downstate, it's going to be yes. So it's just a matter of what is going to happen. Are there going to be enough yeses to sustain, rather go against the no's upstate? What's going to happen?
Well,
update. George Borrello is in the House of Mayville. Justin Gould has more.
George is here. Dave Zerfine. We did have an interview scheduled with Dave. He's running back over. You see George there shaking hands and kissing babies, right? Is that how they say it happens?
Absolutely, yeah.
Good evening to you. So watching your friend George Borrello come in now from a tour around the county, he's stopping at different sites. I guess what emotions are you feeling right now?
Well, I tell you right now, it's a tough race. Can you imagine running from Hanover to Frewsburg? That is, and then to Ripley. I mean, that is a huge area that he has to cover. So I tell you, I'm very, very proud of George for getting out there. And he's been working himself, going out, not just relying on the party, but he's been doing door to door in the city of Jamestown with me several times. I know he's been in Ripley several times. So he's really worked hard for this opportunity.
And now, as you kind of representing the Republican Party tonight, kind of taking the reins with this get-together, from battling the heat early on, trying to get things warmed up.
Yeah.
I guess reflecting on all the people coming in tonight, what kind of atmosphere is this like, and what are we?
Well, believe it or not, there's more people here than I actually thought would be here. Hey, here's George Borrello
Borrello. Hey, good evening.
Right in, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. We're live on Facebook.
All right, great.
Coverage. George Borrello. What's going through your brain right now?
Oh, lots of things. I think we've run a great campaign. I'm proud of each and every one of our candidates and everybody that's helped, and I feel confident. I feel very good.
What would you have to say to your opponent right now if Mike was here?
He ran a great campaign. It was a gentlemanly campaign, and I would say, thank you for running an honest campaign on issues.
All right, perfect, George. We'll let you get back to the crowd, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, George.
All right, thank you. So Dave, in addition to helping George this year with the county race, you yourself have to battle a Democrat for your seat, and I guess seeing that, what's that like for you? How much work goes into that?
Well, believe it or not, in the city of Jamestown, there's a lot more Democrats than there are Republicans. So myself and Elizabeth Rankin, she's another Republican, we just have to work harder, I think, than the average person. But I think that we've got a very good track record on voting. And just because I have my friend Frank Bessie ran against me, I don't dislike him for anything like that. Frank is the actual kind of person that we need. We got to get young people involved. So I called Frank last night and I thanked him for running a very clean campaign. There was no mudslinging. We went to the League of Women Voters, and that was very, very cordial. So I'm very, very proud of the campaign that Frank ran. And if Frank's victorious tonight, I certainly will call him to congratulate him. And he seems like a nice young man. And I hope things work out for him.
I don't mean to be such a Debbie Downer, but do you seem kind of like if this were to come to an end tonight, you'd be at peace with it? Or?
Oh, yeah. The thing is, there are people tonight are going to get elected, and there are people that are not. That's the game you're in, So one of the things I always like to yell out, let's get ready to rumble. And the cards are going to fall. But there's really no loser tonight because everybody they get into this for the right reasons. And I think that's the most important thing is doing what the people want. And I've been lucky enough I'm seeking my third term. Wow, that went by quickly. I'm seeking my third term. And I think I've got some good accomplishments under my belt. But I can't do it forever. And we've got to pass the torch to the young people. There's no question about that. So really, I thought, as the party chairman, I think things went well for us this year. And we'll see on election night, because it really depends on what the voters think. So,
we were talking about, back in our studio, we have this thing called the big board, and that's exactly what you guys are projecting now. You have a bigger board, is what I was saying. But watching these results come in, obviously, it's kind of like a drip, drip, drip. Is there a point where you get where it's like the outcome just by seeing this? Or?
Let's just talk about the board. If you can see the board up there, it says there's 101 districts that have not reported. We've got 9 that have. So you're starting to see the results come in. Once they get up to probably be about 11 o'clock tonight, when like 90% have reported, and if you're up by 500 or 600, which or 1,000, like George or Mike could be, then you can pretty much call it. Now, there could be some tight races that have to go down to the absentee ballots. We had some of those in the past. So those poor people have to wait for another week before they open up those ballots, and that can be very, very difficult and very stressful. I try not to get real stressed out, but believe it or not, my wife is. But it's very stressed out, you know what I'm saying? I really am not. I try to just be low-key, and if it comes, then it does.
This is really a family affair. If you could just take one more step this way, if you could just step out this way, just because I just want to position it, but in the camera. But this is really a family affair, Dave. I mean, your family's here. You know, Michael Lauren's family's here. Is that kind of something the Republican Party tries to foster? Is everyone together at an event like this? I mean, it's a party for sure.
Well, the thing is, you don't get elected by yourself. You might be the only one that gets that glory, but believe me, you've got friends and family that have stood by you to make you who you are today. You know, so when it comes to
New results. Dave Wilfong ahead by, let's see. Oh, they just switched it. Rankin, yeah, it's still haven't reported yet for her.
Yes. But anyways, you don't get elected by yourself, and your peers and stuff, and your friends help you, and your family help you. So it is, and we try to invite everybody, and I'm so grateful for the turnout. A lot of these people came and stuff, and I'm very, very happy. I'm always worried about spending $2,000 on food that nobody comes and eats, and I've done that before. The weather will turn bad or something. I've got all this food. Oh, boy. So
that plays a lot into elections. I know we have our weather guy in studio tonight, because especially when you look at local races, it seems like not as many people turn out as you would for a presidential race.
If it was up to Dave Wilfong, I would have every politician run 4 years and everybody run with the president, because that's the greatest turnout. You think it's bad this year as far as low turnout. You wait till in another 2 years, because nobody will be running except the legislators and the city council. In theory, that voter turnout will be lower. So and I know it's kind of sad that people don't come out and vote, but we've got to give the people something to come out and vote for. And we've got to make sure that we are giving the people the best product that we possibly can. Believe it or not a lot of my constituents call me and say, Dave, can you do this and you do that? Believe it or not, the cell tower up by the church up on Halleck, more people have called me about that than even when we sold the county home, as crazy as that sounds. They don't want that cell tower in their backyard, and I've had probably 10 calls. Wow. Okay, so now they're coming in.
Borrello is slightly ahead of Ferguson. So, hey, Dave, thank you for chatting with me tonight.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad you guys took the time to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So we'll send it back into studio with you guys. It looks like some results are starting to pour in here on their big board. So we'll be eager to let everyone know about that. Back to you.
Thank you, Justin, so much for that. And speaking of Dave Wilfong, right now, he has an 8-vote lead on Frank Bess. It's 132 to 124. That's with 2 of the 4 districts reporting, I guess, so to speak, within one district. And then you have 1 write-in.
Well, it's interesting because he's had close races in the past. Mr. Wilfong beat Robert Whitney 2 years ago by 38 votes. And if you go back even further, he in his first match with Mr. Whitney, he did a little better. He beat him by 97 votes. So 8 votes, even though it's early, could indicate a neck-and-neck race.
You're right about that. And also remember, again, Frank Bessie, it's not like he isn't well known. He's a business owner. He is well respected in the community. So this isn't somebody that just coming out of completely nowhere, for lack of a better term. Back in the county-wide race, in the meantime, George Borrello has 2,216 votes right now to Mike Ferguson's 1,515. That's with 17 districts reporting, 84 not in, and 1 write-in.
So he's at a 19-point lead, points-wise. And that's a pretty healthy lead, but we don't know which districts are reporting because there will be differences I believe we talked about the county divide. I think South County voters will go one way and North County voters probably another.
That's right. And with the county clerk as well, that's an interesting race, of course. You have Larry Barmore, incumbent Republican, at 2,034. Leanne Lazzaroni, 1,624. Another write-in, so that should also be a good race as well. And real quick, I'm just going to go down the county legislator vote list. Kevin Muldowney in the Dunkirk district has a 78-35 lead with still plenty of time to go. And any more contested lists, it looks like we don't really have a whole lot of districts reporting yet within the county legislature, but that's going to, obviously that'll change throughout the evening, and with some of these they're unopposed. So,
well, and as we said earlier, for this election and the previous two, 10 of 19 legislative districts were unopposed candidates. And Mr. Wilfong just talked about we need to give them something to vote for. Well, then there need to be options that they want. I think a lot of people stay home because there's only one candidate in their district, so why? And I think, as also traditionally in the city council, for this election and the last two, there were 4 unopposed candidates for city council. However, this year's different than the last two because in the last two, there were only 3 people running for the at-large and 3 get elected. This case, there are 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans running for at-large. So there could be a new makeup to city council.
You're right indeed, Rory. It's going to be an interesting next few hours, and we need to conserve our strength. So we'll be right back with a short little break.
EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvan Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
And there was something earlier that I wanted to talk about before Mr. Borello decided to crash the party. Okay. No, that's all right. Back with the state votes here, a couple things. First off, with the state Supreme Court justice situation, you vote for 2 when you vote, and there's only 2 people running right now. That would be Lynn Wessel-Keene and Aaron Perodato, both of whom have more than 1 vote. So
they've won.
Yeah, and 15 write-ins. So unless there's a lot of write-ins, which I've seen crazy stuff, that should be... But
doesn't that in your mind go back to what we were talking about before the break, about you have 2 candidates and 2 are going to win? And so you get your wife and your kids to vote, and you're elected.
That's right. With proposal number 1 dealing with a constitutional convention, the first one since 1967, correct?
I believe it was either 67 or 71. I don't.
Well, we'll get an A+ for the day either way. But the moral of the story is a lot of people are saying no right now. Nearly 6,000 votes. That's 88% of the vote so far. Just over 800 for yes. And again, like we talked about, we don't know which districts are reporting, so we're not going to call anything yet.
Exactly.
But right now, the vote number is really what we expected.
Do we have anything on Prop 2, which is to take away the pensions of any public official who's convicted of a felony?
Yes, sir, we do. almost 7,600. That's 83% of the vote, and just under 1,600 for no, which is 17% of the vote.
Do you think that's a groundswell of people? I mean, we've gone through a political earthquake, so to speak, over the last couple of years, nationally at least. And do you think people are just saying enough is enough with a vote like that, or?
You know, I have heard probably my entire life, corruption. These people are bad, but nobody would do anything. Nobody would vote because they thought it was worthless. Nobody would stand up, maybe even make a run. And now you see with city government, county government, again, village and town, any level of government, really, we've seen a lot of newcomers. People are getting sick and tired of the status quo and even the corruption.
Well, and I think it used to be if you were an incumbent, you won because you were the incumbent. Became quote-unquote career politicians. And it is interesting now to see that we have people at all levels. We have a housewife running this year with no political experience, and the argument could be made that might be who we need because they're not corrupted yet. Or there are people who say, no, you need people who know what they're doing and have been doing this for a long time because they know how the system works. So I think it comes down to the voters' philosophy as to what they think. Now, I am also a little excited because I think there's a possibility of an absolute change on city council or the status quo again. Now, I'm not taking sides either way.
Yep.
As a city resident, I have my own mind what I'd like to see. But I do think for the first time in 2 years or 4 years, we could end up with a whole new at-large. And ultimately, if the contested races would somehow go to the challengers, and all three of the incumbents at large aren't there anymore. There's only two incumbents running for at large. We could see a majority shift in the city council, and I think a lot of them have talked about a willingness to cut the partisan politics, to work across the aisle and with Mayor Teresi, for the good of the city. And there have been some big issues in this city over the last couple of years. And as a lifelong resident, pretty much, I remember Jamestown in the 70s and the 80s and what it was, and it was a beautiful place to live. There are issues that need to be faced, and I think it's a fresh sign that new candidates are stepping up, as you said.
And speaking of city council at large, we are starting to get some votes in. And it is absolutely crazy thus far. First off, the leader for everybody, and remember, 6 candidates, you pick 3. Kimberly Eklund, incumbent Republican at large, has almost 950 votes.
And how many districts is that in?
That is, thus far, it looks like 10 here.
10 cities?
9, yeah, and 9 not in for this
Okay.
vote. So you have 947 for Kim Eklund. 831, Vanessa Weiner, who is another political newcomer, also works for the Chautauqua Institution, has experience with marketing, but no political experience yet. She's at 831.
She also, what I found interesting, and it's just to me it's intriguing, it doesn't have any political. After she graduated, she went to Eastern Turkey and did anthropological and archaeological work.
Oh, wow.
And I think that brings a unique perspective.
Yes, sir. And another person that we've kept an eye on, incumbent Democrat, at-large president, Greg Rabb. He's at 797 thus far. And just behind him is Andrew Liuzzo at 795. So you have Greg Rabb, who's number 3, so he is the third most. Liuzzo is not behind him. Michael Lowren isn't far behind Rabb and Liuzzo. He's at 760. And Robert Whitney is still in it. He's at 705. We still have a lot of time to go. This is going to go down to the wire.
Well, I think it's interesting that Kimberly Eklund is the top candidate right now, vote-wise, because in 2013, she came in first among the at-large candidates. George Spitali was second, and Gregory Rabb was third. 2 years ago, it flipped a little bit. George Spitali was first, Kimberly Eklund was second, and Gregory Rabb was third. So it looks like it's going to be a tight race, and we're at almost the halfway point, would you say, on the city races there?
I would say
a little
pretty
less
close, it looks like.
Okay. What do you think this does? Does this have an impact on the mayoral candidacies next election for mayor? Because there may be a different council president, there may be a whole different membership, or it may be two of the same returning.
You know, I've thought about that, and that's a question that we're going to be thinking about for the next year. No matter what happens tonight, I don't think it really matters, per se, because there's a lot of people that are chomping at the bit now to run, no matter what happens tonight.
And the race hasn't even started.
The race hasn't even started.
I know that I go back a ways in covering politics, and I remember the old days when in Jamestown there was a building that wasn't Democratic. We went to the Hotel Jamestown, the Crystal Ballroom. The Democrats would be there. The Republicans would be somewhere else in town. And they actually had party headquarters where you could go and get stickers and buttons and stuff. And I have to say, I miss that. But I think there was more public connection at that point. So it's a kind of a nice touch to see things going on for the Democratic headquarters being in Jamestown. And the Republican headquarters are in Mayville, but there's also candidates who are going to be running to Dunkirk and Fredonia during the night. We're going to keep covering all that. I think the important thing to note is it's still early and nothing is official. And if you went out and voted, thank you very much.
Yeah, it is early. It is break.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, "Well done is better than well said." I've tried to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Barillo. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Barillo did. George Barillo gets things done.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
Hello, I'm Mike Ferguson with my wife Diane. I'm running for Chautauqua County Executive to bring leadership and positive experience to Chautauqua County. From the arena to Dietrich Park and the Jammers, we've had success. I'll bring jobs, battle drugs, and bring new revenue streams through development and growth. That will lower taxes. This is serious business, and it calls for strong, bold, innovative leadership and vision. Let me bring that to you, to us, the people of Chautauqua County, with your vote November 7th.
With coverage that matters. This is WNY News Now. WNY News Now with Matt Hummel.
It's more than being on scene at first. It's more than getting a report out there first. It's about what angle we take. Where do we go? Our coverage is original. Our coverage is a different angle than anyone else can even imagine in this city. We have something that's unprecedented. We'll have an angle that nobody else can top. Again, here are some major races going on throughout the county. First off, county executive. George Barillo has nearly a 2,800 vote lead over Mike Ferguson. And we just have an update. Oh, and the lead is now pretty big for we have Justin Gould is back with us. Here we are, Justin.
We've streamlined the DMV. Of course, in Jamestown, our major accomplishment was moving to a new office where we had off-street parking that was free instead of having to feed the meters. We got a new layout in the DMV building, so you're in and out faster. And as I've said lots of times, I negotiated the lease myself, and we're saving $100,000 over the 10-year period of that lease. And that's something that should be really important to taxpayers. We've streamlined the Weights and Measures Department. We've streamlined the Records Department. When you or an attorney or whatever comes into our office, needs a copy of a deed, copy of a divorce, or any other document, we have it for you in minutes. You can go to other counties and you might wait 60 to 90 days before you get it. And our Weights and Measures Department goes out to every gas pump, every scale, every measuring device in Chautauqua County every year, and our team makes sure that when you buy something, you're getting the weight or the measure that you pay for, and we'll guarantee that.
Again, Barmore and many other Republicans here watching the big board, just like you guys behind us, to see who will come out on top. Reporting live outside of Mayville at Webb's Restaurant, Justin Gould, WNY News Now, for coverage comes first.
And Larry currently has just over 2,000 vote lead over Lazzaroni in the county clerk race. George Borrello, as I was just alluding to moments ago, has almost a 5,000 vote lead over Mike Ferguson. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, here's what's really catching at least my attention, and that's the city race going on. City Council at large. We have, and we're refreshing again right now, the leader is Kimberly Eklund, 2,300 votes. Andrew Liuzzo has 1,952. Vanessa Weiner, 1954. Those guys are currently in the lead. Greg Rabb, incumbent, is about 100 behind them. Robert Whitney is in last place. He has 1,650. And let's go real quick here to the city ward races here. And with the most interesting ones, the ones that actually have a contested race, well, Anthony Doles right now, incumbent Republican, has a 300 vote lead over Joseph Scapoletti. He's a Democrat. And in the 4th ward, Marie Karuba has a 200 vote lead over Richard Ilardo with 2 write-ins. But again, the really intriguing race in the city is the at-large. And we're going to take a quick look here at the county legislator races, specifically around here in the Jamestown area. At District 11, Dave Wilfong has over a 100 vote lead over Frank Bess. Elizabeth Rankin has just over a 100 vote lead over David Reinhardt in District 12. District 13, Paul Whitford, of course, is running unopposed. District 14, another unopposed with Daniel Pavlik. Lisa Vanstrom unopposed. So you're really looking from Districts 11 and 12. We'll keep you updated on those as well. Back at the state level, we've got some more votes coming to you right after this.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, "Well done is better than well said." I've tried to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Borrello. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Borrello did. George Borrello gets things done.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me. EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvan Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
Rory, how's the city looking like outside?
Well, I could take that a couple of ways. It's cold, but it's a nice crisp fall evening, and I would refer to Dakota on that one. He's the weather guy. But the city, the at-large race, is nip and tuck. It's anybody's call. It could be a neck-and-neck finish. I think the surprising thing there is that the person who's been first quite along is doing well, but I think the city council, there's enough votes in to maybe spot a trend, but not enough in to say it's actually going to go the way it is right now.
And we have an interview. Ryan has Sam Teresi.
Speaking
by
of the city.
Here they are.
Most nerve-wracking nights, and to tell you the truth, Ryan, two of the most nerve-wracking election nights I had, believe it or not, were the two
muted.
that I ran unopposed 4 years ago and 8 years ago.
Is that specific race done?
Conspiracy theories and what might be happening,
Above city council.
19 of 19?
are the American
I don't know if you call that final or not.
I prefer it when my name is not on the ballot, but
Hey, is Ryan here or no?
still have that queasy feeling in my stomach because
Is Ryan here or no?
people are on the ballot that I
Oh.
care about and that are running, and their success tonight is important to me and the entire community. Yeah, the Democrat Party.
Okay, I'm writing these down and putting them in order here so I don't have to fish around.
Frank Betsy stepping forward to run for respective offices. We have a lot of young talent in Jamestown. I used to be one of those young guys too. They reminded me when I first ran for office. I was 38, my first time out running for mayor, and it is really heartening to me to see what's going on in this community. Young people engaging, investing in businesses and development, moving downtown, becoming engaged.
That's all right.
And now becoming.
We're trying to figure out if we can call the at-large race.
Particularly heartening to me, young people getting involved, reinvigorating.
If it holds the way it is right now,
Speaking of running in next year, Sam, are you, have you made a decision as to whether you're going to run?
Oh, wait.
You said next year. I'm definitely not running. 2019. Way too early to tell. Got 2 years.
Okay. He asked Teresi what his mayoral plans were. Way too early to tell.
well, that's good because I was going to talk about the scuttlebutt that the mayor's looking to move up, possibly challenge Andy Goodell, and then Greg Rabb would run for mayor on the Democrat side and Tony Diltz on the GOP side. But I don't want to talk about that because it's just scuttlebutt. If it holds right now, your at-large winners would be Eklund, Weiner, and Liuzzo. And actually, Rabb would be fifth. Rabb would be fifth based on the vote total. That's more. 2, 3, 4, 5th.
These young kids reached out to you to kind of tap into your knowledge and ask for some advice or.
Kim Eklund's on the watch for possible mayor down the road.
Most nerve-wracking nights, and to tell you the truth, Ryan, two of the most nerve-wracking election nights I had, believe it or not, were the two times that I ran unopposed, 4 years ago and 8 years ago. And your mind starts turning to all type of conspiracy theories and what might be happening, but it's the part of the American scene. I love election night. I've loved it ever since I was a kid. I prefer it when my name is not on the ballot, but tonight I'm still have that queasy feeling in my stomach because so many good people are on the ballot that I care about and that are running, and their success tonight is important to me and the entire community.
Yeah, the Democrat Party seems to be united strong up there. A lot of young leadership, Sam, in the city. Vanessa Weinhardt, Frank Bessie stepping forward to run for respective offices. I mean, we have a lot of young talent in Jamestown.
I used to be one of those young guys, too. They keep reminding me, when I first ran for office, I was 38, my first time out running for mayor. And it is really heartening to me to see what's going on in this community. Young people engaging, investing in businesses and development, moving downtown, becoming engaged in the community, and now becoming active and engaged in the political process on both sides of the aisle, but particularly heartening to me, young people getting involved, reinvigorating our Democratic Party.
Speaking of running in next year, Sam, have you made a decision as to whether you're going to run next campaign?
You said next year. I'm definitely not running. 2019. Way too early to tell. Got 2 years. I'm focused on tonight's results. I'm focused on hopefully helping a Democrat get elected to the 23rd New York Congressional District in the federal midterms. And then as we move into 2019, we'll see where things are at. You know, if everything is going well with me, still having fun on the job, and there's still a need for a guy like me out there, I may consider it, but it's way too early to tell. Generally, the past 5 times that I've run, I haven't made that decision so well into the election year. I think that the campaign cycle is way too long at all levels, even at my level, at local government, and we don't need to draw it out any longer than what it already is.
Have any of these young kids reached out to you to kind of tap into your knowledge and ask for some advice or some career perspective?
I've talked to virtually all the candidates, and it's flattering because they're younger, they're more energetic, they're smarter than me, and it's kind of cool that they'd be coming to me for some background information, some perspective on approaches and tactics, and basically my advice to anybody getting involved in the game: stay true to who you are, be positive, and my motto when I first ran is don't do anything that you can't explain to your kids in the morning. I know that sometimes it can be rough and tumble. I know sometimes people can feel that outright negative campaign and personal attacking of individuals is the way to go. Running a hard campaign is the way to go. Comparing yourself and your beliefs and what you stand for to your opponent is the appropriate way to campaign. And but personal attacks on what people do and how they do it and how they live their lives is no way to go.
All right, Sam Parisi joining us, Jamestown Mayor. More fun upstairs for Democrats still to come. Back to you guys.
And there's some big news. It looks like we can call a couple of races.
And a lot of big ones at that. First off, County Executive George Borrello, with 98 reported districts and only 3 to go, has almost a 30% lead. I'm calling it right here. You heard it first. As for the county clerk, we're at the same, 98 and 3, and Larry Barmore has a 15% lead. We are getting close.
So we'd be safe to call that one too, probably.
I would say so.
Now, why don't we flip your numbers over to the Jamestown City Council at large, because something interesting is going on there.
Something is interesting going on. I just had to refresh the page a second to double check. 19 voting booths.
19 voting sites of 19 are reported in. And if that's so, it looks like your at-large council is going to be made up of a couple of new people. It looks like in the at-large race, what we're chasing down is that the winner, the top vote getter, is Kimberly Eklund with 2,298 votes. Coming in second, according to the figures we have, is Vanessa Weinert with 1,954 votes. And then coming in third with 1,952 votes is Andrew Liuzzo. So that means that Council President Gregory Rebb apparently has been defeated.
What a race, too. Oh, my goodness. I mean, no matter who you are, you can't say that was a blowout by any stretch of the imagination.
No, 98 more votes, and Mr. Rabb is back on council.
And I know you could say, and all the districts are reported in now, and I know you could say that there's 6 people, you only vote for, you vote for 3, but still, wow.
Well, I mean, if you look at the honest totals, 650 votes roughly separated 1 and 6. Mm-hmm. In the city of Jamestown size, that shows why every vote matters. That shows why, how are you going to feel if your candidate lost by 1 vote? I think that this, to me, this is the top story, because there was talk that Mr. Rabb would eventually be a mayor candidate and would more than likely take over if Mayor Teresi, as in his discussion with Ryan Hedrick, steps up to another level and takes on Kathy Young or Andy Goodell or something else. And he may heal. His political career may not be over.
So just to recap, for at-large, we have Kimberly Eklund, Republican, Andrew Liuzzo, Republican, and the name is escaping me, Vanessa Weiner.
Vanessa Weiner.
Ooh, 6 people. You got to remember all those names in 2 seconds.
That's why you write them down.
That's right. And also, for the regular city council, we're going to call Tony Doles officially.
Not a surprise there, I think.
I don't believe so either, based on what I've been hearing in the community. And in district number 4, Marie Karuba, incumbent Democrat, defeated Republican Richard Ilardo. And that puts it, at a 4-5? Democrats still have 5?
Do you have the numbers for the Karuba-Ilardo race?
Yes, I do. In percentage, we have 61.87 for Marie Karuba.
And that's how many votes?
That would be 615.
All right, and how many votes did Mr. Ilardo elicit?
Mr. Ilardo received 377, and that is 37.92.
Okay, so this is their 3rd straight time Mr. Ilardo has challenged Marie Karuba. I'm looking at the numbers for 2015, and apparently the poll numbers are way up, because 2 years ago, Marie Karuba had 454 votes to Mr. Ilardo's 246. And she's added half again, roughly, to what she got. And in 2013, she had 610, and Richard Ilardo had 429. And we'll be back and see what else we can call in just a moment.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, well done is better than well said. I've tried to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Barillo. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Barillo did. George Barillo gets things done.
Hello, I'm Mike Ferguson with my wife Diane. I'm running for Chautauqua County Executive to bring leadership and positive experience to Chautauqua County. From the arena to Dietrich Park and the Jammers, we've had success. I'll bring jobs, battle drugs, and bring new revenue streams through development and growth. That will lower taxes. This is serious business, and it calls for strong, bold, innovative leadership and vision. Let me bring that to you, to us, the people of Chautauqua County, with your vote November 7th.
With coverage that matters, this is WNY News Now. WNY News Now with Matt Hummel.
It's more than being on scene at first. It's more than getting a report out there first. It's about what angle we take. Where do we go? Our coverage is original. Our coverage is a different angle than anyone else can even imagine in this city. We have something that's unprecedented, and we'll have an angle that nobody else can top.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, well done is better than well said. I've tried to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Barillo. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Barillo did. George Barillo gets things done.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
The Main Landing Restaurant. Excellent service, awesome food, and a beautiful view.
Everything's made fresh here. We love to be outside, and it's nice inside if it's raining, so we have a choice.
Locals and non-locals agree that the Main Landing is quickly becoming a destination.
It's just so casual, and just the food is amazing.
I love the hamburgers. But I really like the tuna I had. The Main Landing Restaurant. Excellent service, awesome food, and a beautiful view.
You're watching WNY News Now, your source for breaking news. WNY News Now with Justin Gould.
Coverage comes first comes at 3 in the morning when everyone else is sleeping. Coverage comes first is at 1 in the afternoon when you're just getting done with lunch and the unthinkable's happening. Coverage comes first at every single board meeting across the county. Coverage comes first when you're not afraid to ask the questions that matter. And coverage comes first for our viewers, for our neighbors, and for our friends.
EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvan Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
Well, we have more big news. It looks like we can start calling the winners in everything local.
Yes, we can. It looks like for the most part, 101 districts reported. Yeah, out of 101, we're just preparing a few things backstage in the meantime. But we've really had an interesting night, to say the least, especially in the city, county-wide, some close legislator seats.
Well, I was surprised because our legislature has a lot of experienced people that have been there a while, and it seems like they're going to mostly be returning. Of course, there will be a new legislator either way. Can't call it, I don't think yet, but there will be in District 6 because that is County Executive-elect George Barillo's old seat, and that was Kevin O'Connell and Gary Stern fighting that one out. So there'll be at least one new face in Mayville.
Will be, indeed. And are we ready, Storm? Oh, man, a lot of races. Storm has been tremendous tonight for us in the
He's babysat me. I'm a newcomer to this, and he's babysat me really well. Any impressions overall tonight? What jumps out at you as, in your mind, the biggest surprise or the biggest story?
Well, I've been thinking about that for the last couple minutes, and honestly, I don't know if there's any real surprises, at least in terms of my predictions before the show. I had a couple of predictions in mind. I mean, there's some bold things. I didn't predict Greg Rabb to win, and that's just based on what the community has expressed throughout the last month or so. But I wasn't sure. I mean, you have to remember, he's been on city council for a decade. So to some people, that's really shocking. To me, I'm not shocked, but I'm surprised, if that makes any sense.
I think for me, I think there's certainly electricity in the air. I know I feel it here at our studio. I think for me, the surprises were, I also predicted that Mr. Rabb would be defeated, but I didn't believe it. I know a lot of people who tell me they really like the idea that he has pledged to continue to serve in the public life as long as he's breathing. And that's commendable, whether you support him or you don't. Public service is a commendable thing. I think the other thing that surprised me probably was that there really weren't any other surprises. It wasn't like a Trump over Hillary or, Harry Truman over Thomas Dewey. We pretty much expected the incumbents to be the incumbents. And it looks like, for the most part, Anthony Dolce is back for another term. So is Marie Karuba at City Council, and a lot of the legislators are back. There was a disappointment for me in that there were 10 district races in the legislature that were unopposed. I would rather have a choice between somebody really good and somebody I don't know than between somebody good and nobody. So that was my disappointment, if I have one. And the fact that I don't get to go hobnob in the headquarters with the guys tonight. But America has spoken all across the country, and Chautauqua Countyans have spoken, and their voices were heard loud and clear, and now we'll see what kind of future their results brought.
Well, just to quickly touch on your point, you talked about 10 districts, correct?
Out of 19.
Out of 19 that are unopposed.
Yes.
I think a lot of that, and we'd have to break that down over the next couple of days.
Yes.
A lot of that probably depends on what district you're looking at, because there are some small districts that really, with so few people, it's kind of hard to pick out a challenger.
But I would think the advantage would be to be in a small one, because it's easier to connect with all the voters. It's a lot easier to be elected the mayor of Jamestown than it is the mayor of Chicago. I think you're right, though. There is a geographical pull to this. And there are some people that aren't challenged just because they've been there and their district is satisfied with the job they're doing. And so there's always at least one person who would run. And I think sometimes we lose our best and our brightest don't run because of what they consider unfair media coverage, dirty campaigning. And that to me was a surprise. This seemed to be a very clean election this year. There wasn't a quote-unquote October surprise, and there weren't a lot of mudslinging that I witnessed at any rate. You may have seen something. But they seemed to all behave in a decorous manner this time around.
We of course, had some reported stuff this past weekend, to say the least. Local media outlet reported that Sam Teresi was involved with sending out some sort of flyer that had something about Andrew Liuzzo and Michael Lauren, both of whom were candidates for the at-large position.
And if he did, that apparently didn't work, because it looks like Mr. Liuzzo is now city council-elect.
Other than that, that's all I've really seen, at least in the public.
And I think we're safe now. I think we're safe now to start with District 1 and roll on through and name who are apparently unofficially who we're calling the winners in the Chautauqua County legislature races.
Oh, right.
Take it away, man.
District 1, we have Republican Kevin Muldowney, who had nearly a 30% victory over James Palmeter. That's in District 1. District 3, another challenger, Bob Scudder, won against Robert Dando by a percent lead of nearly 40%.
Well, and he won big in 2015 as well, Mr. Scudder did. And he won a little closer back in 2013. So he's got his winning game on.
And again, in District 6, which George Borrello is currently serving in until the end of the year when he takes over for county executive, Kevin O'Connell, Democrat, won by 5% of the votes. And total vote-wise, that was around 100, so that's not bad. Let's see, Pierre Chagon won by over 50% over Jerry Ann Samora. That's in District 8.
And she was a political newcomer, and there may not be a surprise there because Pierre Chagnon is pretty well known throughout the county for his service. But you got to take your hat off to her, a political novice, and she stood up and she ran.
Yeah, and who's to say maybe next election something could happen? District 11, David Wilfong had a nice 11% victory over Frank Bessie.
Returns for his third term in office.
District 12, Elizabeth Rankin comes back again with a 9% victory over David Reinhardt. To District 13, well, that's an uncontested. That's Paul Whitford.
Yeah, if he voted for himself, he won.
So I think that was... No, we have District 16. John Davis beat Terry Walker, and that was by a 40% victory. Some of these were landslides.
Well,
but,
we also had an incumbent reelected in 18 with David Himmeline was the projected winner.
And that was 30%.
And that was over Ella Ames. And then District 19. John Hemmer beat Laurel Adams. And so John
that was
Hemmer
20%, yep.
had a pretty solid win.
And just a recap for the city council. We'll start with the wards here.
Ward 2, I think, would
Ward
be a good one to look at.
Yep, Tony Doles over Joseph Scapoletti. In Ward 2, that was by 50%, roughly.
Well, Anthony Dolce is pretty well established in the community. I joke that if all his former students vote for him, he'll win all the time. To me, what's interesting about Mr. Dolce getting another victory is if the unofficial predictions hold up, the story always was that Sam Teresi was going to move up and run for something else, and Gray Rab and Tony Dolce were going to face off for mayor. Well, now Rab may do that, but he's got to be a little politically weaker because of his showing tonight. And Mr. Dolce looks a little stronger because of his strong win tonight. Well, who knows where this could lead?
It all depends, of course, on how the next 2 years work out. And again, a recap for your city council at large.
Ward 4, I think we should give first.
Ward 4, excuse me.
That's Marie Karuba getting a win for the third straight election over challenger Richard Ilardo.
We've had a lot of races tonight. Oh, my goodness. My apologies to Ms. Karuba. And in the city council at large, just to recap, coming into tonight, the three people that were in were Greg Rabb, Kimberly Eklund, and George Spitali, who's retiring.
Yes.
So you had to pick 3 out of 6. Vanessa Weiner.
Well, Kimberly Eklund was the top.
Oh, Kimberly Eklund was the top.
Then Vanessa Weiner.
Then Vanessa Weiner.
And then it was Mr. Liuzzo, Andrew Liuzzo, coming in third.
What a race. I'm gonna think about this for a while. It was so close.
Well, the difference between getting in for Mr. Liuzzo and not getting in for Michael Lauren, 89 votes. And yet, Mr. Rabb was only 98 votes from getting in.
The numbers crunching over here. I can feel the chills from your side of the table.
I love crunching these. I'm better at earned run averages and batting averages, but the number crunching at election night is always fun and I think necessary. Again, we discussed this earlier, but what does this say to you regarding the makeup of the city council? Is this going to strengthen Sam Teresi's hand and the Democrats' hand, or is it going to weaken it because of the changes? It's a pretty big position to be council president at this level and not be that anymore.
If we're looking on paper right now, on paper only, I think it would weaken, and the reason why I say that is because Greg Rabb is an established politician on city council, an established Democrat. So anytime you lose an established member of your party, that's always going to be rough. However, it all really depends on how Vanessa Weiner does in the next 2 years. If she makes her constituents happy, Which he'll probably be in again. If
Mr.
not,
Liuzzo is also a new
That's
member,
right.
so the 2 years are important for him. He has to establish himself as any new person elected to a position. There's a saying when you get into boot camp or you get on a new team for sports, don't stand out. Keep it quiet, obey, don't make waves. In the political world, that's awful. That's also said often. Say that plus tax. But at the same time, it's only a 2-year term. So you spend a year doing the job and then a year trying to get reelected to the job. If the people that voted for them are satisfied with what they're doing, and the council's going to face some big issues. I mean, we're still dealing with the National Comedy Center. We're still dealing with a declining population. Quality of life statistics are all over the map. We have unemployment issues compared to a lot of the rest of the state. And yet we also have our quality of life is, and I just looked at the numbers here last week. We have better air quality than a lot of the state. We have a growing population. Our population is shrinking, but what makes up our population is changing quickly, with Hispanics taking up about 9% and blacks taking up about 4 or 5%. And then there's some Asians and Native Americans and others. And that's going to change the face of this culture. The interview we had earlier, he talked about the lack of a community among the communities. So I think it's going to depend on how well the constituents in each group feel like they're represented, feel like they're served. And the nice thing is, at a smaller level, a local level, it's a lot easier to get on the phone and call Kimberly Eklund than it is to call Donald Trump or Chuck Schumer.
You're right about that one. And again, if you missed that earlier, Rory had a chance to interview Max Martin, president of the Hispanic Community Council of Chautauqua County. WNY News Now, myself, Ryan Hedrick, have done many stories with Mr. Martin before, and he is a well-respected member of the Hispanic community.
Well, I thought he gave me a new perspective. I was able to see it through someone else's eyes. I live in a neighborhood that's predominantly Hispanic, and I don't know any of my neighbors because they stick to themselves. And I think he pointed out there has to be education, and the people have to realize that the Puerto Rican culture is an American culture. They're as American as Hawaiians, as Alaskans, as Tennesseans, and as Chautauqua County residents. So again, even though there still continues to be, after tonight's results, a lack of minority representation in the county and at the city level, I believe if what he does works, we may see some more new faces in 2 years.
I think so too. Ward, I believe it's 3. 3 could always see something. 4, heck, maybe 2, but that would be down the road, depending on what happens with Tony Doles.
Well, exactly. I think you have some wards where the makeup of the demographics are pretty well set, and there's a certain mindset and a certain type of person that lives there. Certainly if you go over by neighborhoods like by Lakeview Cemetery, that's a little different than if you're down on neighborhoods down at the end of Washington Street. You have a different demographic. And so these people that have won tonight, they have to know their constituents. It's not enough to just know them well enough to get their vote. Know what they want, know what they need, and know what they're looking for, and do your best to deliver what's best for them. They put you there, they'll keep you there, or they'll kick you out.
Yeah, once again, it'll be interesting to see how the political newcomers, Andrew Liuzzo, I'm getting a little tired here.
Easy for you to say.
Andrew Liuzzo and Vanessa Weiner. It'll be interesting to see how they handle.
I think the other interesting thing is you're getting people in there with completely different backgrounds, completely different experiences, and so you have people who are going to be bringing a different view. And I'm sure they're going to learn from other people in the city council. I'm sure that the newcomer Republicans are going to work with Mr. Doltz and the other Republicans, and I'm sure that the newcomer Democrat is going to work with the other Democrats, the mayor and other Democrats in power, to strengthen their party's hold, but also that this is how you do things. This is how this works. This is how that works. There's a learning curve. And It's not a job a lot of people would want, and win or lose, you got to take your hats off to them. They stepped forward when others wouldn't, and they ran. And so in the end, the winner either way is the people.
The people. The people is the key to all of this, really.
That's what it's about.
Speaking, and we'll be right back. We have something, it sounds like in store, but it's a surprise.
Okay.
One of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Franklin, and that is, well done is better than well said. I've tried to live by that philosophy.
I'm Bill McFadden, and I'm standing in front of my new Honda dealership. I encountered a number of obstacles. I reached out to George Barillo. George was amazing. He connected me properly with the right officials and the people that could get things done. You can see the results of what George Barillo did. George Barillo gets things done.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first. WNY News Now with Ryan Hedrick.
Coverage comes first means that we will put anything and everything we have on the line just so you know what's going on in your community. We have a lot to lose. We have our children to think about. We have our jobs to think about. How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to put food in the refrigerator? And if anything affects those things, we're going to report them. From crime to health to education, we will be there if it matters to you. That's what coverage comes first means to me.
Hello, I'm Mike Ferguson with my wife Diane. I'm running for Chautauqua County Executive to bring leadership and positive experience to Chautauqua County. From the arena to Dietrich Park and the Jammers, we've had success. I'll bring jobs, battle drugs, and bring new revenue streams through development and growth. That will lower taxes. This is serious business, and it calls for strong, bold, innovative leadership and vision. Let me bring that to you, to us, the people of Chautauqua County, with your vote November 7th.
With coverage that matters, this is WNY News Now. WNY News Now with Matt Hummel.
It's more than being on scene at first. It's more than getting a report out there first. It's about what angle we take. Where do we go? Our coverage is original. Our coverage is a different angle than anyone else can even imagine in this city. We have something that's unprecedented. And we'll have an angle that nobody else can top.
Welcome back. Back in the studio is my colleague and good friend Ryan Hedrick, and we want to get a taste of, you were on the ground at Battle Zone. You were there at the Democratic headquarters, and what was the feeling there? Tough night for some of them.
Yeah, we saw a tremendous shift, guys, a tremendous shift in power, and I think Vanessa Weiner, who we're going to have an exclusive interview coming up in about 20 minutes on our Facebook page and on our website, WNYNewsNow.com. You could hear a pin drop in Labyrinth Press Company. You could hear a pin drop. I heard Vince DeJoy over talking with Rab, almost consoling him. These guys have been in power for a long time. I always talk to my father about term limits. He's as right can get. And he is so in favor of term limits because it limits the liability and possibility of corruption. It limits the liability that somebody will take their position for granted, which we see that far too often. And it limits how long your expectations to carry your agenda go.
Yeah, well, the Founding Fathers didn't expect career politicians. Right. It used to be a part-time thing. You went to Philadelphia or Washington or whatever the capital was at the time being, and you did a couple of months of work, and then you went back to your farm or your boot shop or wherever you were from.
Right.
I want to ask you, since you weren't here during the calling of these things, you were out hustling. Mm-hmm. Anything that surprises you? Is there any result that surprises you, or anything that you consider the biggest story of the night?
Well, I think Greg Rabb has to be the biggest story of the night. I mean, this is a political leader for all intents and purposes that has sat on his throne.
But he's also, not to interrupt, but he's also vowed to live the public life as long as he's alive.
Yeah, he loves it. That's his persona. I really believe that is who Greg Rabb thinks he is. He lives to serve. And whether that's good or bad, that's up to interpretation.
And you mentioned a point earlier about people serving for a long time.
Mhm.
Maybe there's corruption. We're not insinuating anything,
No,
but
we're not.
what we can fairly say, based on what we've heard the last month or two being out on the street, a lot of people have pointed out people like Mr. Rabb and some of his, like Mr. Tracy, some of those people being corrupt. So we don't know. Maybe that's why people shied away from voting for him. We're not exactly sure.
Well, but we have to add that that was just scuttlebutt. They haven't actually been accused of anything.
Exactly.
Public, so
exactly.
we have to be careful how we couch this.
And here is, at the end of the day, Greg Rabb is out. We have a change in power. Vanessa Weinert symbolizes an up-and-coming Democratic Party. People are sick of the status quo. I really believe that the minority, and not figurative minority, the literal minority, the people that don't vote but still have a voice.
You're talking Nixon's silent majority
Correct,
types?
correct.
Okay.
I really think these people are sick of us just trudging along in the quicksand. I do not believe that this city wants to be stagnant. I believe sometimes you have to lead somebody out of a state of being stagnant.
Well, sometimes the cattle prod moves the cattle. Excuse me. What are your impressions on, we had talked earlier, Matt and I, that all the scuttlebutt I've heard, and I'm sure you have heard some of it too, was that in a year or down the road at some point, Mayor Teresi is going to step up and run for something else, and then it was going to be Greg Rabb versus Tony Doltz for the mayorship.
Yeah.
What does this do with Rabb now apparently not in the picture? Because even if he runs, he's at least weakened by this defeat.
I've been told the Republican Party is gathering up a couple of candidates, a couple of likely candidates to get Teresi out of there. I believe that Sam Teresi is the next one to go. And this is not the old Jamestown. This is people coming to believe that they can lead too. You know, Sam Teresi told me on the interview last hour that his this is so ironic that he would say this, guys. His most paranoid feeling that he got were when he was running unopposed, because he wanted to know why he was running unopposed. If that doesn't speak volumes about the culture of politics, sometimes when people are criticizing somebody running unopposed, sometimes somebody's setting somebody up for the axe. And maybe they just had to get 8 years under their belt to get a candidate, and we don't know who that candidate is, but our sources indicate there is a candidate.
Oh, we've heard three.
We have heard three, all unconfirmed. But at the end of the day, I do not think Sam Teresi is Jamestown's mayor in 2020.
That's a bold call, and we'll remind you of it in 2020, I'm sure. But I think your point's well taken, because here you have a young guy like Michael Lauren, and he came in fourth in the at-large race. I mean, you know, he beat Mr. Whitney and he beat Mr. Rabb, and this is a young guy who this doesn't kill his political future because he came in fourth.
I have another bold prediction. If the National Comedy Center does not win or succeed in this city, I believe the Democrats will be showing the exit door real quick. I believe that this is their last chance to get it right. And if they don't get it right, if they don't bring the city back to what it once was or resembles something that it once was in the 70s or early 80s, I believe they'll be showing the door and the Republicans will take power in the city.
So this, at least for now, apparently makes Vanessa Weinert the rising bright star of the Democratic Party locally.
I mean, her numbers indicated that, I mean, she had more votes than anybody except for Eklund at one point, and she just kept rising to the top. And you should have seen how humble she was. I'm actually a big fan of hers. I can't wait to see if she delivers on her promise to make government more transparent. That's easier said than done, guys.
And it's interesting you brought up...
she would have finished first in 2015 for at-large. She actually got, the top vote getter then was Mr. Spitali with 2136, and Mrs. Eklund got 2298, and Ms. Weiner got 1954 to come in second.
And it's really interesting you brought up that point about the National Comedy Center. Over this past weekend, and I'm not going to put their name on blast, but we had a city employee on our Facebook page get very defensive with some of the accusations that some of our listeners were making. Now, I'm not saying the listeners were right or wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but I could feel through my phone screen right here, I could feel the heat. And I don't know. I
That
think
same
there's a lot
city
of
employee tonight at Labyrinth Press Company was very on edge about a couple of things, and within an earshot of a couple of reporters was saying some things not very constructive in terms of unity. Now, I'm not saying that he's not unified with the city. Maybe he's just having a bad night, but I will say this. When one apple falls from the tree, sometimes that apple holds the other apples up. And I think we've seen a shift today, guys, that symbolizes the next couple of years and how the trend will go.
Well, I had predicted in the city council at-large race, I had predicted a RAB defeat, but quite frankly, I didn't believe it. Because I'm from the old political school of Jamestown where the Democrats own everything and ran everything. And if you were mayor until you didn't want to be, kind of thing, you know. And it wouldn't be unprecedented for the mayor now to rise up the ladder. You had Stan Lundeen, who went on to serve as the lieutenant governor and as a congressman. And so there is that precedent. And I think Governor Cuomo, who may or may not be running for president, is very well connected with Mayor Teresi. I think
I still think Teresi goes to Washington. I think Teresi goes to Washington in some way, shape, or form, and I compare him to the education commissioner, John King, and what he did with Barack Obama. I didn't think King was going to Washington, but he did.
Could he run against Tom Reed if, say, Eddie Sundquist isn't successful?
Well, I'll tell you what. Eddie Sundquist seemed to be the rallier, the main guy around the Democratic Party. I think he's a rising star in this community, and I think his voice and his stature, it really surprised me tonight. He was very outspoken, very authoritative, and I believe he may give Tom Reed a run for his money next year.
Well, you have the numbers for the three propositions. I'd just like to update everybody on that, if that's possible.
That is very possible. Just refresh the screen.
You know, you have Proposition 1, which says, should we or should we not hold a state constitutional convention? Which is expected to be defeated. Pundits are saying it will get beaten, even though there was a heavy spending campaign by unions to support it. There was a lot of... It's common to have the vote. Law says every 20 years, but there hasn't been one in a long time. So what do you say? What do we got?
Well, those unions might be a little sad with themselves right now because we are looking at an 89% no, 11% yes.
And that's in Chautauqua County.
Well, according to these numbers,
statewide?
yes. So statewide, we'd have to look more.
Yes. What about Prop 2, which is a possibility of taking away the pensions of publicly elected officials who are convicted of felonies?
Well,
I'm all for it.
At least in this county, overwhelmingly yes.
Yeah. Not a surprise.
82 to 17.
This goes back to the corruption story.
Yes, this is, and you know, it's been very hard sometimes to sit and admit on some analytical and opinion shows that we've done here in the past, but we do believe that there is a faction, a small faction of politicians that take their constituents for granted. And when they do, I think they need to be held accountable. The fact that Sheldon Silver and Dean Skelos were indicted speaks volumes. And you heard Andy Goodell at the top of the show. He said, maybe it's not the three men in a room that we're accustomed to, but they're forcing accountability. We are seeing accountability. People don't always rise up from the ashes as quick as we want them to, but the general public is getting sick and tired of the distrust, the manipulation, the lies, and the stealing on tax time, on tax dollars. They're sick of it.
Well,
for their money.
the saying in the 60s seems to be coming back now. The status quo has got to go.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Mr. Silver, who his conviction was overturned, but he's going back on trial again in the spring.
Right.
I think jury selection begins April 16th, if I remember.
Right.
And he's appealing that to the U.S. Supreme Court. If the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't hear it, then he's on trial again.
Right. They're just going to keep trying him until they convict him. And I think
kind of like an OJ thing.
And we're getting way off base here, but I believe it's very strange to me that Preet Bharara gets fired and Dean Skelos and Sheldon Silver's convictions are overturned. To me, that's just strange. I do want to congratulate you guys publicly on a tremendous job. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
Your work.
The honor
You were
was mine.
tremendous tonight.
Don't mind me.
Maddie.
I'm updating the website.
Thank you for your help.
You got it.
Thank you for the kind words.
This is a team that you don't see every day. It's hard to do what we do, and I'm not trying to put us on a pedestal, but I'm thanking you, the community, for supporting us. It's difficult to come here day after day with so much uncertainty in terms of financial uncertainty and the climate, the business climate, but we thank you for making us a top choice in Chautauqua County, and we promise you, Rory, myself, and Matt, that we will never stop pushing the envelope and we will never stop seeking the truth for you, our loyal listeners and viewers. Thank you from the bottom of our heart.
I just want to say this was a unique experience for me. I've never been live on air for anything in my life, and I come from a journalism background of print media. I enjoyed every second of this, and our loyalty is to the truth.
Yes.
And so if you want respected, we're not mainstream media. We're part of the New Deal, folks. Yeah, I'm an old school dog, but I'm learning some new tricks. But the truth doesn't change, and that's what we're out to find for you.
So election night 2017, a smashing success for Justin Gould, Matt Hummel, and the newest guy right here, Rory.
And Storm Hartman.
And Storm Hartman, of course, and
Yes.
Dakota Hunter. Dakota Hunter, the whole team and family here at WNY News. We love you, Jamestown. We love you, Chautauqua County. Bidding you a very pleasant good evening. Thanks for watching.
Good night.